everyone, today we're going to talk about vaginal secretions. Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about vaginal secretions. So put on your earphones, this might not be safe for work. Vaginal secretions are normal, and you may sometimes hear people call it vaginal discharge. It's not my favorite way to describe the fluid that comes out of your vagina during a regular month because discharge has a connotation of being abnormal, something you get out of a wound or a surgical incision. Secretions is more physiologic, and so I really prefer to use that term because that's really what's happening. So there's a big misconception that your underwear should be dry at all times. I've seen all these videos and I think it's crazy. And I have lots of people come into my office for an appointment because they have normal vaginal secretions and they think it's abnormal. Somebody told them that, I don't know who. So what I thought I'd do today is give you a little bit of education on what is normal and what is not. So a little bit about your menstrual cycle. So your menstrual cycle has two halves, more or less halves. Secretory phase and the luteal phase. The secretory phase has a lot of changes in what's going on in the vaginal secretions, and the luteal phase is a little bit more stable. The luteal phase is the more stable part of your menstrual cycle. For the vast majority of women, it's 14 days. Could be 12, could be 14. That's the normal range, 12 to 14 days. In some rare cases, it can be short, and that's usually because of a hormonal imbalance. But for almost everyone, you have 2 weeks. So, Jen, you say, my cycles are every 35 days. How is that possible? Well, it's because the secretory phase of your cycle can be kind of any length of time. And that length can change based on stressors, travel, diet, all these different things can impact the length of the secretory phase. So let's talk about what you see in your vaginal secretions throughout your cycle. In the beginning, right after your period ends, you're not going to usually see a whole lot, but eventually you're going to start to see more and more thinnish mucousy secretions. They're usually white, clear, yellowish. That's all kind of within the realm of normal. Then what's going to happen is as you get towards mid-cycle, whatever that might be for you, so 2 weeks before your period, you get a lot of these secretions that are really, they kind of look like egg whites, so they tend to be clear or white, and if you were to put your finger in the vagina and pull some of them out, they'd probably stretch between your fingers. Then, after that peak of secretions, you are going to get more kind of thicker, stickier kind of mucus, a little bit less copious for most people. And that is your telltale sign that you are now in your luteal phase. So I just want to show you with a little diagram that I printed off the interwebs what is actually happening with your hormones and why you're having these different types of secretions throughout the month. Can you see it? All right, so this is the image, and I'm just gonna point out what's happening here. So, start of the menstrual cycle, first day of your period. First day of your period is day 1 of your menstrual cycle, so the first day you actually need to use a pad or tampon is typically considered the first day of your period. As you can see, all your hormone levels here are really low, and what I want to show you is here. So this darker line here is estrogen. This slightly lighter line here is progesterone. And then here you have your luteinizing hormone and your follicle stimulating hormone. Those we'll talk a little bit less about. Those will be more for fertility videos that we can talk about. But for your menstrual cycle, it's really you're getting a type of secretion based on your estrogen and progesterone balance. So as you can see in the beginning, both are low. And quite soon thereafter, estrogen rises pretty fast. Progesterone stays low throughout the secretory phase. And just before ovulation, estrogen peaks. And that's when you have that really nice egg white type mucus, lots of it. It's very fertile. Usually you feel a little sexier around that time. because our bodies are telling us, hey, it's time to make babies. So that is why with that high estrogen, you get that lots of those nice egg white secretions. Then once you ovulate, estrogen drops pretty quickly and progesterone rises. So as progesterone rises, the secretions become thicker, and what they do is they kind of form a plug of mucus inside the cervix. So what that does is it acts as a barrier against infection to protect the possible new pregnancy. Progesterone is also high because if you do become pregnant, your body, your ovary is going to continue to produce progesterone until a placenta takes over. If you do not become pregnant, then 14 days later, the levels drop and you get your period. So that's the kind of short explanation about vaginal secretions. That is what is normal. Most women will experience this kind of array of secretions throughout their cycle. Some people who might not are people who are on birth control pills. They may notice kind of just a more regular kind of secretion that doesn't really change a lot throughout the cycle, and that's because your hormones don't change throughout the cycle when you're on birth control pills. Things that are abnormal are funky smell. If the discharge, and I'm using the word discharge consciously now, if it smells fishy or kind of like rotting fruit, I know it's a terrible word, kind of terrible visual, or like just really, really different for you, that's a big red flag that there could be a bacterial infection. If it smells kind of extra sweet and maybe a little bit bready, that could be also a sign of a yeast infection. So when you have a bacterial infection, the discharge tends to be runny. It may be kind of yellowish or greenish instead of a nice clear or white color. If you have a yeast infection, it tends to get very thick and clumpy. You'll hear people talk about the cottage cheese type discharge. You can be infected with a parasite or a sexually transmitted infection, which will also have an unusual discharge. It is not the nice, normal, white, clear, odor neutral secretions. They tend to be itchy or burny or irritated and really copious. If that's the case, you definitely want to have it checked out. Most of those infections are really easily treatable. Sometimes you can have what we call persistent vaginitis, where they kind of come back and come back and come back. In that case, we want to rule out other problems. So you should always make sure to get anything abnormal checked out. Most of the time you can get an appointment on the same day for this kind of thing. You can always stop into an urgent care, though that's less desirable because you'll probably have to wait for a really long time, or even see if you can get a quick appointment at Planned Parenthood if you can't get in with your doctor for weeks and weeks. So that's the quick story on vaginal secretions. Please subscribe to the channel, let other people know if you're interested in getting women's health information, and help me spread the word far and wide so that we can take back our health. So I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll share this with your friends. Please leave me a comment if you have some topics that you'd like me to cover, and I'll see you next time. Bye.